Listen to it carefully. You have a stroke of sukha in the mind. A stroke of sukha. It subsides there. And the next is a stroke of dukkha. This sukha subsides and dukkha arises. That also subsides and sukha emerges. Can you tell me very intelligently with discernment that what is the source of this sukha and dukkha? The sukha emerged and subsided. The sukha emerged and subsided. The next is dukkha emerging and subsiding. So sukha has subsided. Then dukkha is emerging. So what is the source of dukkha? Where the sukha subsided. Again the dukkha subsides. Then sukha emerges. So what is the source of emergence of both? You yourself tell me. Is it not in between them? That in-between factor is what is remaining constantly in you, and the Sukha-Dukkha waves are non-constant. Am I clear? So please think every time, I am happy and comfortable now. I was not so earlier. I will not so be later. So where is the anchor for me? Where is the refuge for me? The refuge every time is the source of these Sukha-Dukkhas. If the source of the Sukha-Dukkhas is in between the two, what is that in-between factor? Is it something useless or is it something immensely resourceful? Can you tell me how many thoughts the mind can produce, has produced, will produce? Crores and crores and crores of thoughts the mind has produced, and it is still ready, not exhausted at all. The earth is getting depleted, but the mind is not depleted. So what is the resourcefulness of the mind? It can give rise to any extent of thoughts, any extent of thoughts, any extent of emotions, any extent of action, interaction, interactional consequences, etc. So that the mind is immensely resourceful. And that mind, you try to identify it as the in-between sama factor in you. Sama dukkha sukham dhiram. Nobody worries about it. Nobody thinks about it. I am pleasant, I am unpleasant. I am pleasant, I am unpleasant. Arey, who produces this pleasantness and unpleasantness? Your mind. Is not the mind resourceful then? How does it produce every stroke of pleasantness? Before that, there was a 0 point. And from that 0, sukha emerges and dukkha emerges. That 0 point, you tell me, is it superior to sukha dukkhas or it is submerged and overcome by sukha dukkhas? Does it become a dry discussion or a vibrant one? This in-between factor, has it ever been overcome by any incidents of sukha or dukkha? So what do you think of its majesty, its magnificence, its profundity, its sovereign status? How beautiful, how great, how glorious, how splendorous it is. Sama dukkha sukham dhiram. The moment you start contemplating upon, reflecting upon the source of sukha dukkhas, particularly identifying the in-between factor, you will find you become dhira, a wise person, a courageous person, a stable person, a person who cannot be dislodged by anything. Only two things are there to dislodge us, sukha and dukkha. The only resultants of the world and all interactions. And these are already not dislodging the in-between factor. So will I be dislodged by any happiness or unhappiness in this world? Huh? You are weak. Why don't you challenge the world? My dear world, you can throw me what? Only pleasantness and unpleasantness. These are not in your horizon or domain. It is within my body, in the mind horizon. I am reacting to you in the form of happiness and misery. You are not capable of acting or reacting on me. I permit you in the form of sensory perceptions. I allow the sensory perceptions to trickle down in the mind. And in the mind level, I reduce the 5 sensory perceptions into pleasant and unpleasant category. So the sensory perceptions did not proceed from you. They have proceeded from me. they are coming back to me, I react to them in the form of pleasantness and unpleasantness. Now I have discovered something greater than happiness and unhappiness, pleasantness and unpleasantness. Compared to you, my dear world, who can cause only sukha dukkhas, I am infinitely greater, glorious, grand. With your brain, with your intelligence, with your power of introspection, reflection, rumination, comprehension, my dear souls, will you be able to rise up and then say, yes, I am. Throw away the stories of poverty, the stories of inferiority, the stories of debility, unmanliness. Throw it away. These are all concoctions of the psychological structure of the human being. Cast aside this mental inner poverty, inner humiliation. Any growth in this world is from inside to outside. Our whole body has been shaped in the mother's womb by virtue of the power within. It drew only the blood cells from the mother's bloodstream and it started growing. The eyes are formed by it, the nose is formed by it, the ear is shaped by it, the hands and fingers are shaped, everything is done by it. Itself it is neither an energy nor matter, but it has got all material formations in our body. What do you think of the power and the greatness of this inner presence, my dear souls? Do you have an intelligence to introspect? Do you have a mind and heart to feel and comprehend it here and now? This is what the Upanishads declare. Iha cheda vedid atha satyamasti najediha vedin mahati vinashti. If you succeed in knowing this truth here and now, your life becomes meaningful, great and esteemed. If you miss knowing it, colossal, great is the loss. Do not speak about the powers of the world, the properties of the world. The entire world is inert, matter and energy. We alone are the sentient being interacting with this inert and insentient world. No matter will be able to produce an experience in a dead body. Only when life is pulsating and vibrant in the body, the material world can be perceived and interacted with by the living individual. The whole interaction belongs to the individual. Nothing belongs to the interacted with world. Understand it 1,000 times. Samadukha sukham dhiram saha amrutatvaya kalpade. Amrutatvaya kalpade. The man who is able to develop this equal vision towards primarily and ultimately only sukha dukkhas. His equal vision is not concentric or microscopic. It becomes comprehensive and universal. If your mind has become equal and even, with equalness and evenness will remain strong wherever you are and whatever you do. Sage Vasishtha tells Sri Rama, a knower of truth, a knower of the inner presence. If the entire Himalayas become molten one day and starts flowing, or the entire Indian Ocean becomes dry and shows the bottom of sand and rock, he will not be surprised at all. The greatness of the world that you see is the greater greatness of you, the seer. Between the seen and the seer, you tell me, who is greater, the seer or the seen? If the world is so great before you, who shows it as great? Only because of the 5 senses the world reveals itself. These senses are our own creation, the creation of the inner presence. The world can give you only fleetingness. What are your children? Who is the married partner? What about your home? What about the office? What about the property? What about the car? What about the moon whose picture is being sent now? Tell me, is there anything sentient in the whole process? Are they not all inert? Are they not transforming? Are they not changeful? Are they not fleeting? Are they not evanescent? And from that you propose to get stability. Impossible. Impossible. The intelligence will not accept. The deluded minds may look for earnestly. That's all. It is a hope. It is a hope. It is not a clear clarity or a confidence. It is not so. The Sukha-dukhas and the world phenomena are by themselves fleeting. Be intelligent enough. Be wise enough. Be rational enough. Be reflective enough to use these fleeting elements, to use and employ these fleeting elements to develop the unfleeting confidence in you. I don't know whether I am clear. Huh? Use all these fleeting elements in this world and develop an even attitude towards them. I understand that you are fleeting because I am unfleeting. No? Huh? Every day we sleep, we wake up, we again go to sleep. So the sleep gets transformed, the waking state also is transformed. Both of them come and go. But I remain the same in the waking, in sleep, and at all points of time. So all these fleeting phenomena, including the transforming, the transiting wakefulness, dream state and sleep state, all of them are clearly confirming, reaffirming my unfleeting nature, status and potential. Am I clear or not? So you tell me, my dear souls, at what point of time are you the fleeting? I told you that you have the identity beyond the ego and the intelligence, the soul. In that identity level, remaining stable, you tell me, are you fleeting or lasting? Huh? Not satisfied. One here and one there. This moment you tell me, you slept last night, you woke up today. So many times you slept and you woke up. So you survived the sleep, survived the waking. All of them transformed. But did you get transformed? So what is it proving? Are you the transforming or are you the untransforming? Assert that, say that, declare that, articulate that, sing and dance. Sing and dance. My dear world, by your association with me, I understand my unfleeting nature, my everlasting nature. You are confirming by every bit of your experience and interaction that I am unlike you, I am like myself. Asangoham, 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 punah punah. I am unattached, unassociated, again and again. Satchidananda Rupoham. I am pure existence, pure consciousness, pure blissfulness. Ahameva ahamavyayaha. I am the irreducible, the unalterable, the inexhaustible, the impervious, constantly present. Presence. Does it take too much of an intelligence to know it? Never tell me, Swamiji, your lecture is... No description. This lecture is the song of your own heart, of your own soul, of your own presence, of your own reality. I am not speaking about anything at all. I don't speak about a Vaikuntha, nor about a Kailasa, nor about a heaven, nor about a hell, nor about pre-birth or further birth. I am speaking about the life here and now. Use all the fleeting elements in this world, external as well as internal, and develop an even attitude. Understand that I am surviving all kinds of impacts from the world. I am surviving all kinds of inner transformations like sleep, waking and dream. By surviving all this every day without any effort, am I not proving my own stable and lasting character, quality and potential? Is my language all right? Yes. This even attitude, Vasishtha tells Sri Rama, what a wonder is this. Samadaya madaya gunashalinam Purusharadihaya samalankritaha Tamamalam pranamanti narottama Abhimahamunayo Raghunandana. How beautifully meted. This is the excellence of India. Every branch of knowledge is described in poetry. Arthashastra is in poetry. Medicinal science is in poetry. Astronomy is in poetry. History is in poetry. Everything is in poetry. Samadaya madaya gunashalinam Purusharadihaya samalankritaha Tamamalam pranamanti narottama Abhimahamunayo Raghunandana. My dear Raghunandana, whosoever mind is ornamented by, enriched by, decked by this even attitude. Understand, this evenness is an attitude. An attitude belongs to the mind. An attitude does not belong to the intelligence. It does not belong to the senses. It belongs only to the mind. So whichever mind is adorned by this attitude, only people of qualities, people of character, people of some piety, who believe in God, who have the element of worship, who respect the society, respect the tradition, respect acharas, vicharas, etc. Only those people will be graced by this quality. Purusharadihaya samalankritaha. He becomes the emperor amongst human beings. Tamamalam pranamanti narottama. Tamamalam pranamanti narottama. Even the best of people, noble people, consider that pure man worthy of adoration. We are a people who adore idols which are not alive. So what should be the extent of adoration towards these people, you tell me? கல்லுக்கு முன்னால போய் நாம கும்பிடு போடுறோமே, அந்த கும்பிடு போடுறவா இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு மனுஷன், ஒரு மகாஜனம் இருக்கானா, அவனை எப்படி போய் கும்பிடு போடணும்னு நீங்களே சொல்லுங்க. தமமலம் பிரணமந்தி நரோத்தமா அபிமகாமுனயோ ரகுநந்தனா. Even, will you come or shall I drop it? It is an instinct. Tamamalam pranamanti narottama. That man is the most pure, immaculate, innocuous person, very benign person. That person will be approached by even the great ascetics, saints and scholars of the world, and they will prostrate before him seeking his blessings. This is what will happen. This samabuddhi is something so very great. In order to have it, what should you have? You must develop a new emotional excellence. Why I call it emotional excellence? Attitude is an emotional approach. It is not an intellectual reaction to anything, emotional reaction. That emotional excellence should be cultivated. By that you will have everlastingness. Shall I tell you something more about Sukha and Dukkha? Yes. Huh? Yes. All the reasoning that I present, do you consider it to be a dry reasoning, or really a very, very sublime and noble journey in our inner understanding? It is a pilgrimage. So he says, Saha amritatvaya kalpade. That man is declared fit for everlasting stability. Amritatva means what? Immortality. Our body is mortal. Being associated with the body, the idea of mortality grips us. It constantly stares at us, and we are not able to escape. The body will continue to remain there, but mortality will never tease or taunt or hunt you. You will start feeling, singing, dancing, saying that I am immortal by the very glory of my birth. I was not a dead-born child, stillborn child. I was a vibrant child where life was pulsating. That life is evidenced by the body, and this life is immortal. Sri Krishna, in his last conversation to Uddhava, he is quoting an Avadhuta, a spiritual dropout, or at least a spiritual hippie. What? Have you heard something like that? Spiritual hippie. He is a hippie. He stands by no conventions. He has no acharas. He may put on clothes, he may not put on. He will walk about very freely, very freely. The entire world is nothing before him. Expelled gas, that's all. Such a wonderful man. A Maharaja was going in a chariot, Krishna's own ancestor Yadu. Seeing him and his greatness, a young man, he stopped his car, prostrated before him. And then he asked, how are you moving about? With this kind of an inner splendor, at the same time total indifference and unconcern towards the world. People of your age are constantly allured, attracted, overpowered, fascinated, held by the clutches of the world. But you are not. What is your greatness? So he started speaking to him in return. Krishna cites them. There is an English book here, a translation of what I wrote, Krishna as 24 teachers. You can read the conversation there. There he says, Sukhama indriyakam rajan swarge naragaye vaja dehinam yat yatha dukkham tasmat necheta tadbuddha. I wish you can write this verse and constantly reflect upon it. Sukhama indriyakam rajan swarge naragaye vaja. What is the sukha that we are getting? Our sensory interactions with the world start trickling down and they cause sukha-dukkhas. So all the sukha-dukkhas that we are feeling inside the body, do you agree that externally they are caused by the senses? He says that sensory sukha, oh Maharaja, oh great king, swarge naragaye vaja, you can get it in the heaven as well as hell. What? Can you imagine? This is India and the scriptures. Even in Naraga you have the same sensory experience. Dehinam yat yatha dukkham tasman necheta tadbuddha. We are getting miserable. We are getting unhappiness and unpleasantness. Does anybody need it, look for it or yearn for it? Huh? Your attention is going here and there. See, our sensory experiences are available not here, but in the other places also, heaven as well as hell. It is not something very special to the earth alone. Now, in the Sukha-Dukkhas, nobody aspires for Dukkha, is it not? In spite of it, you are getting it. If Dukkha is there, it is understood Sukha also will be there. If it falls, then you take it away. Let us not try again. This table is not wide enough. I have to keep my paper also. See, dukkha, we don't aspire. We don't look for it. In spite of our resentment, dislike, etc., does not dukkha happen? Huh? If dukkha happens, it means sukha was there and will be there. So sukha also will be effortlessly had. Just like dukkha is being had in spite of your efforts to avoid them, sukha also will be effortlessly had. If that is something effortlessly had, should you ever think of it or work for it? Huh? So are we not fools in wanting to be more comfortable? Because it is something inevitable. As dukkha is happening, sukha also will transpire. If both of them are effortlessly coming, what should you try for at all? The young Prahlada, the 7-year-old child, called his classmates and he started giving spiritual lessons. You are feeling that Swamiji, your lectures are too lofty, too dry and all that. Don't say that. Prahlada was 7 years old and he was an Asura Putra. All of you are human children. And they were Asuras, demoniacal children. Those children also were discussing the same philosophy and truth. So why should you not understand it? So he said, Sukhama indriyakam daitya deha yogena dehinam sarvatra rebhyade deva yatha dukkhamayatnataha. In this world, Sukha is experienced and enjoyed by everyone. Don't think that you are an exception. By the very fact of your life, mind, senses and the world, Sukhas and Dukkhas will definitely occur. So Sukha is experienced by everyone. Sarvatra lebhyade devad. Everywhere the incidence or the occurrence of Sukha takes place as a result of nature pulsating in this world. Call it Deva, providential, or call it natural. It always takes place. Yatha dukkhamayatnataha. In the same manner as you are having dukkha for which you don't strive or struggle, Sukha also will be had. Then what should you try for? Nothing. Sukhas and dukkhas are the only experiences we will have from the world. Whether you are rich or poor, you have children or not, you are well employed or inadequately employed, your income is big or short, everyone is going to have equally sukha dukkhas and they alone, nothing else. And these are effortlessly to be had. Then you tell me, what further will you ask for? Point out what is different from sukha dukkhas. This is what Prahlada says. Just imagine how this boy is driving home the truth. Now I am asking you, when we are discussing stability and happiness, I am asking you one question. If thus, constant instability, unstable factors, both outside as well as inside, are thrust by nature, don't you think in the company of these unstable factors, we can easily cultivate and recognize our stable presence? Not clear? Yes. Huh? Yes. Be wise enough. These unstable elements, by associating constantly with us, are repeatedly proving that we are equal, we are uniform, we are stable and we are lasting. Take the lesson of lastingness from there and feel more and more, more and more, more and more. Do not be swept by sukha dukkhas, sukha dukkhas, sukha dukkhas. Do not be swept by them. To be swept by them is a delusion. Introspect over how I have my sukha dukkhas. Is it because of the outside factors or because of my own mind? Is not the entire nature causing these sukha dukkhas? And by trying to be uniform towards them, I achieve my goal, I achieve my purpose, I have become excellent. So there is no struggle, only discrimination. I happened to meet a bank official. He is a very senior official working for a multinational bank. His specialization is distressed loan financing. And the loans are running into millions and millions of US dollars. He was telling me that he has already underwritten $1.5 billion of business. So you can imagine. So generally in my discussions I always ask them, tell me, what is the one quality which enables you to function in this position? He said, Swamiji, I am not attached to my work. Literally I am repeating what he has said. I am not attached to my work. Another sentence that he said is that, Swamiji, do you become tense or stressed? No. My function can never be done if I become tense or stressed. What is the story you have to repeat? Everyone working in responsible position says that I am stressed, I am tense. The executives have only one meeting. What is that? Stress relieving, tension relieving. Wherever there is a program, they will go. They will fly to America, go to Australia. How many people they are flying? Only to relieve stress. Now here is a middle-aged man who comes up and tells me that my job cannot be done with stress and tension. So I am not stressed up, I am not tensed. I also asked him another question. Out of so many businesses we do, some fail. When they fail, do they charge you? No such culture is there in our bank. Whenever a decision is taken, it is a top level decision. All of us are party to it and nobody is segregated and charged for a failure. You tell me, what are these things? Should you not please listen to good stories of business? If any corporate has been able to raise his company, the one quality that has helped him is integrity. Integrity. With a stressed mind, what can you do? I cannot understand. Being human beings, intelligent, etc., are we supposed to be tense always? Or are we supposed to be light-hearted? So think about it repeatedly. Now I will get into a very subtle discussion from Yoga Vasishta. This portion is there in Quietude of the Mind. It is under what is called page number 11. Song of the Siddhas, Siddha Gita. You can find it. I will explain 1 or 2 verses. Shall I? Will you be patient? I am constrained by time. When I explain, I will try to stop it after explanation. Or do you want to run away? Huh? See, Janaka was a great king. He was sitting on the throne. Many saints and sages used to adore him. He used to conduct spiritual assemblies where Brahma Vidya was discussed and the knowers of truth were rewarded in those days. Sri Krishna quotes him in Bhagavad Gita as a model person, an enlightened person. This Janaka and his retinue went hunting in a hunting expedition. At one point of time, Janaka, somehow his attention was drawn to the skies and he coolly got away from the crowd, went into a grove and looked up. He found a group of sages, Siddhas, traveling in the sky, singing severally and jointly a song. He listened to them carefully and this is the song. Drishtra drishya samayogat pratyayananda nishchayah yastam swama atma tattvortham nispandam samubhasmahe. So far whatever I said, were you following me? Or is it difficult? See, any knowledge when absorbed is very much refreshing and enriching. Any knowledge. Drishtra drishya samayogat pratyayananda nishchayaha. I told you that life is an interaction. In the interaction there are 2 factors. One is drishta, the seer, the subject. And another is the drishya, the perceptible, the visible, the to be seen. One is the object, another is the subject. Between the two, the subject is within you and the entire world is an object outside you, encircling you. This much is clear? And all our interactions are interactions, an action in which 2 parties are involved. Any interaction presupposes, implies 2 factors. So one is the interacting subject, another is the interacted with objects. To begin with, they are 2. To begin with, they are. I am looking at you. Swamiji is the looker and all of you are looked upon or seen. So there seems to be a distance between us. All of you are seated there. I am the seer seated on the table here. There is a distance and separation between us. But when the actual seeing takes place, when the actual seeing takes place, do you come to me? Huh? You get up and come to me. You don't come to me. Do I come to you? But I am seeing you. I am seeing you. You are there and I am here. In spite of it, I can very clearly say how many people are seated in the front row, how many are in the back row, how many people are there. All these things I can clearly say from here without coming and touching you or asking you. So where is the actual seeing, that conjunction taking place? Inside me or outside me? Drishtra, drishya. Drishta means the subject. Drishya means the object. Samayoga, a conjunction between the 2. Drishtra drishya samayoga pratyayananda nishchaya. When I open my eyes, look in your direction and I see all of you, comprehend you, it comes to you in the form of a conjunctional experience. Conjunction means what? 2 things are conjuncted, joined. So I am the seer, you are the visible. When I see you, all the visible things apparently come to my mind, and I, the seer, and the visible, both of them join together to form the experience called seeing, which is in me, not in you. So all interactional processes, you tell me very clearly, are they not within the seer? Are they not subject to you? And they give rise to pratyaya, means thought, idea or experience, which we describe in various ways. Seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, thinking, understanding, questioning. All these are different words. They are called pratyayas, ideas. Now every experience of joy, is it not associated with one idea or the other? Huh? Oh, I wanted to have a child. The child is born. He is actually a baby, a boy whom I wanted to have. So I am joyous. That the child is born and I am joyous. Are they physical, external references, or are they references to my own inner ideation? Boliye na thoda. Inner ideation. So the joy is actually inward, subjective. Yastam swamatma tattvotham. We are contemplating upon that inmost presence, which gives rise to the distinction of the seer and the visible. Finally, a conjunction between the two, and through the conjunction taking place within the body, it starts giving rise to a sense of joy. The whole process is within me. Is it outside or inside? Now that source, supreme source, which thus gives rise to a variety of conjunctions between the seer and the seen, giving rise to a variety of experiences, all of them rooted, grounded in that very source. That source, the supreme self, we contemplate upon. What do you think of Hinduism? Tell me. Huh? If you have intelligence, you have to bow down your head. This is what India is. This is what our culture is. Now, on the basis of this fact, I have to be brief. Drashta darshana drishyani tyatva vasanaya saha darshana prathama bhasam atmanam samupasmahe. It goes into a few verses. I am taking only two. Drashta darshana drishyani. So far you have understood? So the next point. On the basis of whatever we have set forth and understood, I am telling you, drashtra, darshana, drishyani. There are three processes here. One is drashta, the seer. Drishya, the visible. The conjunction between the two, darshana, the seeing. All these three, in as much as they inhere within me, within the body, in the sphere of mind and consciousness, can you differentiate them as three, or are they one? Are you really saying? I became the seer. I wanted to see. I opened the eyes. And I gained a picture of you. And this picture I sense. In the whole process, I have not gone outside. You have not come inside. I myself became the seer and named something as the visible, interacted with it, then called the darshana, the seeing, and I became the seer. The seer, the visible, and the seeing. All these things are taking place in me alone. In the whole process, is there anything besides my mind or besides my consciousness? Huh? In order to glimpse all of you, did I become different? Oh, I was about 3 inches square. Then I became 300. Tell me what transformation has taken place in me. By seeing all of you, I am not afflicted, I am not tormented, I don't have headache, I don't have stomachache. I see all of you very comfortably and happily, and nothing has happened to me. So all our desires are for the drishya. No. We are desiring what? The objects of the world. These objects of the world, are they going to enter into you? Then what is it that you are going to have? You will have a feeling that I want to possess them. And you will feel I have possessed. That is another idea, another ocean. And that feeling of possessiveness gives you joy. The joy inheres in you or in the object? Huh? Then is there anything to be desired here? Puriyalai. See, even when I desire an object, does the object come inside me? I only feel I want to have an object. I possess it and I have a feeling I want to possess. It became I possess. Both of them are ideas. These ideas are creations, bubbles in the consciousness. So what gives me the joy? The object outside or the feeling of possessiveness inside? This possessiveness being an idea, your joy is ideational and its source is your own mind and your own consciousness. If that is so, cast aside all the desires. What is there to be desired here? You are desiring your own mental idea. Will the mind seek its own idea? Will the mind seek its own idea? Any thought is not different from the mind. Can the mind desire a thought? Is it outside it to be desired to possess it? The mind can create a thought of its own accord. So the thoughts are at its command. So all the desires,